Fun times in Cleveland again.
Still Cleveland.
Come on down to Cleveland town, everyone. Under construction since 1868. See our river that catches on fire. It's so polluted that all our fish have AIDS. We see the sun almost 3 times a year. This guy has at least 2 DUIs. The flats look like a Scooby-Doo ghost town. Don't slow down in East Cleveland or you'll die. Our economy's based on LeBron James. Buy a house for the price of a VCR. Our main export is crippling depression. We're so retarded that we think this is art. It could be worse though, at least we're not Detroit. We're not Detroit.
Welcome to the Friends Fans Benefits Baseball Podcast. I'm Justin Mason. That is Dave McDonald. Dave, how you doing, my friend?
Good, Justin. Hanging in here. We're recording at almost 3 a.m. my time. So, just about normal time for us.
Yeah. So someone asked me, someone texted me the other day and was all like, well, why do you and Dave record so late? And it's like, well, we're busy people and we're both up super fucking late. So
that's very true.
So,
yeah.
That is the reason. There's no good reason like that why anybody should be talking about baseball at 3 o'clock in the morning your time, midnight my time, other than the fact that we're both up and we like baseball.
Exactly. We're degenerates. What can we say?
Absolutely. We're going to talk a bunch of baseball. And we're going to talk some news. Then we're going to talk about middle relievers and fantasy. And then we're gonna answer a question or problem I think that you have.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to hear about this problem. But first, before we jump into any of that, you've been watching much of the World Series?
I haven't watched a single pitch.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
It's been a really good World Series.
I think people don't really believe me when I tell them I really only care about fantasy baseball and the Indians. Guardians now. I really don't watch. I mean, other than when we were hanging out, at First Pitch Arizona, watching the games and everything, because you guys were into it, I was socializing during the game. I would keep an eye on it, but I know that there's a lot of big moments and it's cool. If I'm not really invested, it's hard for me to get up for them. I don't know, just don't watch.
Oh, I'm
I don't even know who's win. What's the series at right now?
The series is a 3-2 Braves right now.
Okay, well, I am rooting for the Braves. I'm rooting against the Astros.
They were up 3-1 going into the game last night, and put up 4 in the first inning. And I get a text message from Paul Sporer to this little group text that we've got with Jason and Eno, and he's all like, "I hate to be the guy that does this because I've always shit on people, but this feels like burying them, right?" Fucking no sooner than he say that, Astros come roaring back, end up winning the game. So it's been a really, really good series. Been back and forth, some real big moments. So heading back to Houston for Game 6 tomorrow, and then Game 7 on Wednesday, if needed. So I'm rooting for the Braves as well. But as much as I know everybody else hates the Astros because of the cheating thing, I think that's a bunch of bullshit. Anyways, I wouldn't mind seeing Dusty get a ring. I think, Dusty Baker, one of the great managers in baseball, I wouldn't mind seeing him get a ring. So it's kind of a win-win scenario. The Dodgers aren't in the World Series, so that's all I care about.
All right. Well, agree to disagree. I will definitely keep the Astros. But, man, their offense is so good. You can never count them out of a game. I don't care if they're down, 6-0 in the first. There's too much time left for them to score. That offense is just too good.
Yeah, absolutely. That is it's the reason I picked them to win the World Series at the start of the season, and coming into the postseason was their team is so good, and their pitching has let them down a few times here in the postseason, but somehow that offense keeps helping them unbury themselves. So it should be a fun end of the series. Maybe you'll catch a minute of baseball, maybe you won't. We'll see. But let's talk about some news. Bob Melvin is now the manager of the Padres, which kind of came out of left field no pun
Right.
intended. I didn't even know he was available. He was still under contract with the A's. The A's apparently gave the Padres permission to interview him, and now he's going to be the manager of the Padres. Does this do anything for you in fantasy?
I haven't even processed it yet, but I know the A's kind of weren't really known for running as much, but then again, we saw what Starling Marte did when he went there. So, I'm not really thinking it's going to change a whole lot in fantasy that I'm thinking of right now. I'll have to dig in more and talk to some people who kind of follow him more, but I don't think this really, in terms of actionable things in fantasy, nothing really thinking for me. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, the two things that always kind of come to mind for me first whenever there's a manager switch is the running game. Like, are they going to be aggressive on the base paths? And like you said, like the A's have not been a team that has been extremely aggressive on the base paths in recent years. But I think that has more to do with personnel. Like, they just haven't had the guys. Because we saw Starling Marte, come in and steal 1 million bases at the end of the season. Laureano was running pretty wild in the first month of the season. Before he had the shin split injury. So I'm not super worried necessarily about that. I think there's, maybe they take a step back a little bit because they were a team with Tingler that liked to run a lot. But I don't think it's going to be that amazing or that detrimental to them. The other thing I think about is bullpen usage.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that.
It's like, how does the manager use his bullpen? Does he like to go with a guy? Here's the problem with that in a guy like Bob Melvin, is he's been the manager of the A's with very limited resources, and they haven't been willing to bring in a guy, right? Like, they tried to with Rosenthal, and so they, but he kind of just goes with the guy who pitches the best. We saw this with Trinan, we saw this with Hendricks. I assume he'll continue to go down that route. It'd be interesting to see if Melanson's back on this Padres team, but we also don't know, I think, a ton about how a guy like Bob Melvin will manage on a team with resources. Like, this is the first time he's gonna be a manager on a team that's willing to spend money, and I think that can change things for managers as well. So I'm definitely not going to put a lot of weight into anything in terms of this.
Yeah, and I mean, I think he had Hendricks as his closer. He had Trinan for his year as a closer. Like, I think he's going to be similar, where he's going to go with one guy. It might not be, like you said, maybe he might tend towards the better pitcher, not the guy, with quote unquote the most closer experience, like Melanson. But you're probably going to know who his guy is, hopefully, and I think he'll probably stick with him. I mean, who knows? He could change, but right now, I wouldn't be, like you said, I wouldn't be too concerned about that. I think those two are the biggest two things. I think the third thing would be how deep does he let his pitchers go into games? And offhand, I can't really think of anything that would suggest that he would hold anyone back, assuming that the Padres are can even have any healthy starters going into next year. But other than that, other than trying to keep the guys healthy, I don't think he's going to be pulling guys early or keeping them in extraordinarily long or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't think this changes too much value, but I think that's another thing we tend to look at, right? What about John? Let's talk about John Gray. He rejects a deal or an offer from the Rockies. Reportedly 35 to 40 million for 3 years. The reason why they didn't trade him in the offseason is because it seemed like he wanted to stay there. Apparently, he wants more money in order to stay there, though, because he's not signing a deal right now. If John Gray leaves Colorado, do you become more interested, less interested?
Yeah, even though I think his splits were actually better at home this year, if I remember correctly.
Yep. For the second time in 3 years.
Right. I don't know that there's anything to, we've kind of talked about the Coors effect and how, they kind of get used to it, and then going to other parks, it's now harder. But I've also heard for pitchers that like they lose a bit of their stuff pitching in Coors. Like, the ball doesn't spin as much or whatever.
Yeah, the ball doesn't break as much in the thin air of Coors, and so when guys often, sometimes they're able to kind of figure out what works best in Coors, but then struggle on the road because their stuff starts breaking way more than anticipated. They end up walking more guys or leaving things in the zone they didn't intend to. So,
right.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on Gray, though? Is he a guy that you would target if he left Coors?
I mean, I would be more interested. Like, I think he would have more upside as more than just a streamer if he leaves Coors. But it's not like I'm going to be like desperately trying to draft him everywhere and anything along those lines. But I was looking. I think he's got like an $18 million option that they can re-sign him for. So maybe his thought is, I'll just take the 18 mil instead of getting twice that for 3 years. And then that way I can just, go somewhere after this and maybe be a little bit better somewhere other than Coors. Maybe he's doing it for his career,
Yeah, I didn't know about the $18 million option. I'm actually looking it up as we speak.
I could be wrong, but I thought I saw that somewhere.
No, he's an unrestricted free agent. I'm sure maybe what you had read was they could give him the qualifying offer, which would be about $18.2 million.
Yeah, that was what it was. Yeah.
So, which I wouldn't be surprised. The question is, will he take that? Like, I think I would probably take it if I was him. That's $18 million in your bank account.
I don't think he's getting that anywhere else. I could be totally misreading the market here, but especially with the uncertainty with the season this year, I think it would probably be in his best interest to take it.
I wonder if guys will take less in terms of like on a longer term deal this year. Then take a bigger 1 year deal, because of the uncertainty around the labor stuff. I think as of December 2nd, everything's going to get shut down, right? And so like if people get offers prior to that, on these kind of like 3 year $30 million or 3 year $40 million, hey, maybe I would make more for 2022, but I don't know if there's going to be a 2022, so I might as well get the back end of that contract.
Yeah.
And I wonder if guys do like backload their contracts too. Like, hey, you can pay me $5 million, for 2022, but you're going to pay me $15 million for the next 2 years after that, just in case. So that's what I would be doing, right? If there was a chance there was going to be no, I guess no sports writing, no podcasting potentially in 2022. I would sign the biggest deal for 2023, 2024 that I could.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't? And maybe that's kind of built into the Rockies' offer too. They don't want to pay him for 3 years when they're only going to get 2 years of production, from him. So I don't know. It would be. It seems like a difficult time to come to terms with players, honestly, especially for the small to mid markets.
Yeah, I mean, I would be interested in drafting a John Gray if he left Colorado, much more so than I was willing while he was in Colorado. The only thing is, man, I feel like he's one of those guys. His price is going to shoot up if he signs anywhere that's pitcher friendly. Like if he ends up in a place like San Francisco or a place like I don't know. I'm trying to Miami's a bad example because they're not signing pitchers, but even if he ended up in New York, like with the Yankees or something like that,
or with like the Rays,
or the Rays, like his price would just go through the roof, or at least not through the roof, but it'd go up much higher than I think I'd be willing to spend. Yeah,
I think there would be an overcorrection. I think people would be thinking, oh, now he's out of Coors, it's this huge deal. I think the upside for him to be more consistently better is there, but I'm not, super worried about him.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick Anderson is undergoing elbow surgery to correct some things. I mean, I'm pretty out on Nick Anderson. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, not much to say there. It sucks for him. He was, one of the most dominant relievers coming into 2021. and then just injuries have just piled on now, and you really just, I mean, being in Tampa to begin with, that closer situation is gonna suck, that, but even as like a guy, as a middle reliever, you can't depend on him at this point next year. So I don't even know, is he even gonna be ready next year? I'm assuming he's gonna miss significant time next year, if not all.
And even if he doesn't miss significant time, do we care? Like you said, like, I mean, is he, one, going to be the same pitcher that he was before? And two, like, even if he is the same pitcher, he wasn't the guy necessarily always getting all the saves anyways. So
no, I don't even think he's even a favorite. I mean, like, I don't even think he's in the top two. I think Kittredge is probably the guy, if they have a relative guy there.
Yeah, and I don't believe they're ever going to have a guy. They're just not.
No, I don't. Not under Kevin Cash. No.
So, because you haven't watched any of the World Series, you did not see Charlie Morton break his ankle or break his leg, I believe it's his fibula, and then strike out Jose Altuve after he had broken it.
Wow!
I mean, just an incredible gutty performance by Charlie Morton. He, of course, is done for the rest of the postseason. Reports are good that he should be okay at some point in spring training. Any thoughts on Charlie Morton?
I mean, I had Charlie Morton on a couple teams this year. I've been a fan of him for a few years now. Great stuff, but man, this is a little scary. I mean, the fibula is a large bone to break. The older you get, the longer it takes for you to recover from things. And he's now going to be, I believe, 38 or 39. He's my age now, so I know how recovering from injuries at my age goes. So, it's a little concerning. But if you're getting a little bit of a discount and he seems like he's ready to go in spring training, I'd be back in again, I think.
Yeah, I think this may actually depress his value, and honestly, I think his value is going to be depressed more than it should be anyways, just because he is going to be 38 next week. And happy birthday, Charlie. I'm sure he listens. I mean, this was a guy that I faded because I didn't know what to make of him. He kind of struggled at points in 2020. He ended the season dealing with kind of an injury. And I kind of just said, I'm fading him. I wish I hadn't, because he was a really, really good, kind of SP4, SP5 for teams. And definitely outperformed that draft spot. So, I think I've got him, I believe, inside of my top 30, as long as he's healthy. And so I'll probably fade him in my early drafts until we get a little bit more information about how he's doing. But as we start getting into March and we see him on a mound, I'm going to be very much buying back in on Charlie Morton.
Yeah, we'll have to see how he looks. He was the kind of guy who I liked to target in drafts because I don't like those kind of guys in the first, 4 or 5 rounds, but you could, first 3 or 4 rounds. After that point, I'm looking for those guys like him who have that ace stuff upside, who can be an SP1, but you don't have to pay the SP1 cost. So he came with some risk, as any starter outside the first 2 rounds always does, but I thought the upside was good there and worked out this year. But he certainly has that. Being older, and coming off another injury, he will carry some risk.
Absolutely. Speaking of risk, Tommy La Stella got some off-season Achilles surgery. He's expected to to miss about 4 months, which would put him kind of on pace-ish for around the start of the season. Makes it a little bit iffy. I'm avoiding this at all costs. Like, I like Tommy Stella, especially in your on-base percentage leagues. I think he's a guy that is kind of underrated. I know this is kind of a rough year, kind of derailed by injury, but Achilles injuries, man, we just saw this with Mike Soroka. Like, there isn't enough, like, these injuries don't happen enough in baseball to have a really good sample size in terms of how long it takes guys to recover from. And it always seems like it takes a little bit longer than the actual timetable that's left out. And La Stella's not a guy you're stashing. Like, he's not worth holding on to on your IL or on a reserve list. So Listell is likely not going to be on any of my teams in 2022.
Yeah, I mean, he's a platoon bat versus righties. But with the Giants, you never know. Like, other guys stepped up in his absence, and we don't know if he's going to be guaranteed any kind of playing time even when he does come back next year. So he's a guy who you want to wait and see when he comes back, and if he looks good, then you can probably pick him up for a couple bucks and stream him when he has a favorable schedule versus a bunch of righties for a week or a half a week in FBC. But I think that's pretty much all you're going to get from him next year.
I will say this, though. The Giants really like him.
Okay.
I mean, in spite of the fact he missed so much time, and like you said, there were guys who stepped up, like, he still led off against righties during the playoffs. Like, that tells me a lot about how they're feeling. I know we talked about, I think it was last week or maybe the week before, about, like, hey, what do we look for at postseason numbers? And I said I don't care. One of the things I do care about is usage. Because if you're going to use a guy in a spot like a playoffs or World Series, you're definitely thinking you trust him. That's where you want to use him next season.
Right.
So, if they're willing to use him that high and, he ends up being healthy, he could end up being a steal on draft day. That being said, I'm probably going to bypass it just because of the injury risk. Rafael Devers has an arm injury. Apparently is just elbow inflammation. Any worries here?
I mean, he's not a pitcher, so no, I don't think so. Not unless I hear more that like it would require surgery. But it sounded like he avoided any kind of major injury. And not watching the playoffs, I didn't even know this was a thing. But I was looking at.
I honestly don't even remember it. So
yeah, I was just looking at some recent news, and they were talking about it was just elbow inflammation. I was like, oh, okay. So I mean, because he's a guy who I'll probably have at least a share of next year. So I'm keeping an eye on him, but it seems like he's fine.
Yeah. Miguel Rojas signs an extension. He might need surgery though as well. Any worries on Miguel Rojas?
He had a nice little year. Definitely want to keep an eye on now, but finger injuries usually aren't anything super concerning. He has plenty of time to recover, so even if he does have surgery, unless it's something really serious, then I'm not. But I don't think it would be might need surgery if it were. So I'm sure he'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm not super worried about that. What this does tell me though, is that it appears the Marlins are not going to be in on any of these big free agents at shortstop. Trevor Story, Carlos Correa. The Marlins have been a team that is rumored to want to spend this offseason, but apparently it doesn't seem like it's going to be on shortstop. So maybe it is in the outfield.
I mean, I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, I haven't seen the Marlins show any interest. I mean, granted, I guess now that they're and we'll talk about this later, but now that their rotation is coming along, maybe they're thinking that they have that opportunity, but. I don't know. I was always skeptical that they were going to go after Carlos Correa, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I was skeptical you're going to go after anybody, but if they're going to spend, I guess now it's in the outfield, which, I mean, there's some pretty good outfielders. Maybe they do bring back Starling Marte.
It's possible.
He might be a good little fit for them. So, Dustin May has started throwing. Do we care?
So he underwent Tommy John. When was that?
Not long enough ago for me.
Yeah, I think it was like early May.
Yeah.
So you're typically looking at a year and a half. So
that's November.
Yeah,
18 months is November. It's a year from now. I'll see you in 2023, Dustin May.
Exactly. I mean, he'll probably be back at some point next year, but do we care? The answer should be no.
No, absolutely not.
I mean, when he's back, they'd use him as a reliever, I'm sure, and his control won't be there. But he could be a nice buy low target for 2023, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's coming out of the pen. At the end of 2022, And that might be interesting in leagues in which you are using relievers, which, hey, really good segue. That's what we're talking about. There was, I'm assuming you got this topic from the discussion that was happening on Twitter earlier, I think today, where
Yeah.
people were talking. I think Jeff Erickson tweeted out what Chad Green's numbers were, and that he ended up like, I don't know where exactly he finished in terms of his SP, or where he would have finished in the SP ranks, but probably in the top 50 or something around there. Should we be using more relief pitchers, especially with kind of the changing dynamic of how teams are employing starters by not letting them go as deep into games? You're seeing more reliever wins. You're seeing relievers who go deeper into games as well. Guys who aren't just pitching inning or less. Guys who are pitching 2 or 3 innings sometimes. Like, should we be making this more of a part of our game?
It's a complicated question, and that's why it was interesting to me. So yes, it was Jeff Erickson who's tweeting about Chad Green and then kind of talking about relievers in general, that he thinks that maybe they're underutilized in the fantasy game. And there was like Fred Zinke and Larry Schechter and Drew Forte, who's a fixture in the fantasy baseball community. I've been talking to him for a long time too. And we were just kind of talking about, it's, first of all, I would say only in deep leagues, like only in a 15-teamer would I even remotely consider this, because like in 12s, I can always find a starter that is, good enough to play, even in 12s. But in 15, sometimes you get put in a tough spot where you'd either be adding a starting pitcher who, either it's mediocre to bad skills, who you're playing against a weak opponent and just hoping he can get by and possibly give you a win, or it's a mediocre starter to decent who's got a tough matchup or something where you might want to bench them. The problem is that wins are super inconsistent to begin with. They're even more inconsistent when it comes to relievers, because he's talking about Chad Green had 10 wins this year, and I was like, okay, but he had a full season in 2019 and he only had 4 wins that year. So you're really, if you're streaming middle relievers, you have to look at the wins as a bonus. Like, you really have to just be saying, okay, I'm looking for someone to get me, some strikeouts with some good ratios. But, I streamed Chad Green for a week this year, and it happened to be the week where he gave up 4 runs in 2/3 of an inning. So, like, you'll have that. There's not many totally dominant, guys who are not closing, as relievers. Very, very few and far between. So it's not something that I'm ever going to plan on. I don't think I'm ever going to get to a point where I'm going to, because like, let's say you're starting 9 guys like in NFBC or a lot of other formats as well. You're probably going to have 2 closers. So then you're going to have 7 starters. And so you have to ask yourself, is your weekly SP7 going to be better than a good middle reliever? And I think you can have those weeks, but I don't think it's something that you want to target. At least for me, that's not the game that I personally want to play. How about you?
It is and it isn't. And here's what I mean by that. Early on this season, or I'm going to go back to kind of the question you just asked yourself, right? Is a middle reliever better than my SP7? At the beginning of the season, no. Absolutely not. But a middle reliever may be better than your SP14 after you've dropped guys, right? And after you've been rotating guys in and out, and after we have a large enough sample from relievers to identify who might be worth actually using on a regular basis. When you get into the doldrums of June, July, and August, and you're wondering if Dean Kremer is right for your team this week, yes, maybe that's the point. But if we're talking about, April and May, then probably not. It's, there's still too many good options available on the waiver wire. There's still too many good options available on your team. But as injuries hit, as we start getting more information, yeah, there probably is. there's obviously, you know, when I do the Roto write-up, it's a daily, you know, kind of for daily moves leagues in terms of streaming pitchers. But if you look at my streaming pitchers, and I only stream starters on these articles, you know, if you look at my record for streamers, it was 498 in a third innings. I got 38 wins, 463 strikeouts, a 3.82 ERA, and a 1.19 WHIP off of streaming for this article. Now, obviously, not all those guys are going to be available in every league, and so on and so forth. But streaming is a really streaming starters is still can be really effective if you do it well.
Yeah.
You know, and I just don't know that you get the volume necessarily from, you know, like I understand where Jeff is coming from, and I asked this question during the streaming pitchers panel at First Pitch Arizona, you know, last month when we were there. You know, I asked this question: should we be streaming relievers? Because I want to say like there were 8 relievers that had 7 or more wins, and like there were only like 38 or 39 pitchers with that many wins, starting pitchers with that many wins. So like in terms of streaming for wins, you can be pretty effective if you know who those guys are. But I don't want to pay for those guys at the draft table because those change all the time. Remember when Chris Davinsky had like back-to-back top 25 starting pitcher seasons as a reliever?
Yeah.
Like I want to get the next guy. I want to get the next Chad Green. I want to get the next Chris Davinsky. I'm not paying for last year's guy. Ask people who paid for Devin Williams how they're feeling about their season in 2021. And so I'm not worried about it as in terms of like my draft prep. That is in-season work.
Yeah, completely agree. And I said this in the conversation. Relievers are so, especially non-closers, so inconsistent from year to year. I mean, you could have a guy, like you said, Davinsky, you know, looking elite for a couple of years, and then he's completely irrelevant the next. Like, I'm definitely not drafting these guys. It is only in season, but you know, you were also saying like in April and May, you know, no, but then later, you know, maybe. See, for me, I mean, unless you've got injuries, which obviously are a thing, so that could happen. But my rotation is usually getting better as the season is going on because I'm picking up guys, I'm adding guys. So I think really the only times that I need a reliever in there is like when there's like a crunch and like, you know, there's injured guys and there's stuff going on where, you know, I have a bunch of bad matchups or whatever with some of my lower starting pitchers that I don't trust at that time where I might need to stream one reliever for, you know, a brief period of time. But, you know, some people are like, well, you know, if I just played this guy the whole year, this is what I get. But are you really going to play a reliever all season hoping that he, you know, gives you like Chad Green did this year? Because, you know, like I said, Chad Green 2019 didn't give you anywhere close to this. So I don't know.
If you played Chad Green all year, did you fall behind his strikeouts? Like, because that was still a starting pitching spot, quote unquote.
Yeah.
That gave you, what, 99 strikeouts, I think it was?
I don't even know if it was that many, honestly. Let me see. It was, yeah, well, okay, it was 99, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah. You know, I mean, that isn't enough strike. Now your other 6 starters have to be pulling that weight in strikeouts. Yeah, he helped your ratios. Yeah, he helped your wins. Well, I mean, I don't know that he helped your wins, but he at least kept you afloat in the wins. But your strikeouts are way behind now too. So like, if you're going to roster a guy like this, I mean, this is the equivalent to rostering a rabbit, right? So you know, it may rostering Billy Hamilton or a guy who we're going to be talking about here in a little bit, or you know, Mondesi. It's great because it gives you all those stolen bases, but you have to make up for the deficits in batting average or in power. You know, same can be said for rostering an extra reliever on your team. Yeah, it may actually help the ratios a little bit, but does it help it enough to offset how much you're going to have to make up in strikeouts?
Right. It's also it's a smaller sample, right? Like, because if he only pitches 80 innings, you know, that's not going to affect ratios nearly as much as 150 innings from a starter, you know. So, yeah, I mean, I think we're in agreement that it's really only something that we would do in streaming situations where we absolutely need to. But so let's say that theoretically, let's say you are in that crunch and you do need to, the options on the wire are bad, or if you're doing fab and you've got the guys who you would like to add, but they all go for more than what you bid on. The guys that I'm looking to add as middle relievers, I'm looking for guys who, if I'm adding them for Monday, I want to know that they didn't just pitch on Sunday and or Saturday, because guys don't often pitch back to back. I'm looking for the most opportunities within this week. So I'm looking for someone who could potentially pitch for me on Monday and then maybe get like 3 appearances in. I'm also looking for guys who can go multiple innings, if you can get those guys who can go 2 to 3 innings, even if they only do that once in a week, but if they do it twice, you could potentially get like 6 innings from a guy if they need it twice in a week. So I'm also looking for guys on good teams, because you can't ever count on wins from relievers, but you're certainly not going to get them if you're, using an Orioles reliever or something. God help you, don't do that. But, you want to be rostering guys on good teams who can at least give you a chance for some wins. And, guys who pitch like the 7th and 8th innings are obviously much better to get those chances at wins. And then I looked into this. Target guys who are facing weak offenses and or in good pitchers' parks that week. I mean, seems intuitive, but I would rather take a lesser middle reliever against a much worse offense than a slightly better reliever against a really good offense, because it does come into play.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing I'm looking for is I want to see who I think is going to get the most innings, right? It's targeting those guys who are multi-reliever guys. Also targeting guys who might be coming quick in, off of if the random, Jesus Luzardo, is pitching. Well, I don't think Jesus Luzardo is going more than 4 innings.
Right.
Then I might want the guy who's coming in next. This is the reason why I fell into Tyler Mahle in was it 2020? Is I thought he was going to be the 6th man in that in that rotation, the guy on the outside looking in, and I was like, okay, this is a team that doesn't feel like is going to get a lot of depth from some of their starters. I think Tyler Mahle could be a sneaky wins guy. And then he ended up moving in the rotation and becoming, Tyler Mahle. So, it worked out for the wrong reasons, but I still profited from it. But that's something that I've tried to target when I am kind of targeting these kind of bulk relievers is, hey, this is a guy that I think could be the next man in, on a shorter leash team. So, while I don't like to target starters on the Rays, I don't mind targeting like the Colin McHughs or the guys who I think might get multiple innings on a team like the Rays, because I think those starters are going to be coming out before the 5th inning's over.
Yeah, that's another good point. And who I guess I didn't technically need him, but do you know who I used in the final week of the Glarf/Earth League? Was your current closer for the Giants, Camilo Doval, and that was when he started getting saves down that stretch. But I didn't know he was going to get saves. I picked him up because he had something like 9 appearances in 13 days. So I was like, okay, they're using the crap out of this guy, and he's really good. And I was looking into his stuff, and I'm like, wow, okay. I think I used like 3 or 4 middle relievers in the final week because – and that's another time when you can use middle relievers is like down the stretch. I think Phil did too. He was just looking for saves. But, if you're way ahead – or at least you can't fall behind enough for it to matter in like wins and strikeouts, then you can do that. You're just looking for ratios and maybe some saves, then that's fine. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was just trying to protect my ratios and try to build them up a little bit in the last week. I wasn't looking to take any chances, especially in a quality starts league, because like shitty pitchers are not going to go 6 innings. So you're looking to stream much less in quality starts leagues. I'm putting a lot more draft stock in my starters in quality starts leagues because those guys are so few and far between. But when I don't have them, I'm not just going to throw out a guy who's probably only going to go 4 or 5 innings. I'm going to just take the ratios and run.
Absolutely. Any other thing you want to talk about in terms of this topic?
No, I think we can move on. So you kind of talked about it a little bit in the intro, question or problem. It's actually a topic of an upcoming article I'm working on, and I call it the Mondesi Problem. And it's about how you approach Adalberto Mondesi, because we talked about this a little bit last week. But what strategy do you use when you're drafting a player who can be a game changer in a category like Mondesi, but at the same time you can't screw yourself over in steals if/when he gets injured? So, projection systems still have Mondesi with the most stolen bases next season with 41, as we talked about, after they projected him for over 50 this season. And FYI, he had 15. So he came up a little short. But the whole point of drafting Mondesi is that if he can stay healthy, he can win you the stolen base category with very little else. I mean, you're going to need more than 40 or 50 steals, obviously, but you don't really need any other huge contributors. You can kind of get like dinks and dunks here and there. But but how do you go about that? Because if the whole point of drafting him is so you don't have to worry about focusing on steals in the first few rounds, but if you don't do that, you don't have any backup for when he goes down. And there is no solution on the wire or in Fab for Mondesi most times. I mean, you're not going to get a guy with 40 steal. You might be able to get like 10 to 15 here, 20 there, maybe. But those guys are even going to go for a lot in Fab. The other thing is if you're building your team around Mondesi, and I think this is part of why Siege takes him as early as he does, is because if you don't get him, and let's say he goes in like the 3rd round, and you're like, okay, I'm going to use my 3rd round pick on him. So your first 2 picks, you don't even take any steals, right? So because you're like, okay, I'm going to take Mondesi in the 3rd, so I don't need to get steals with my first 2 picks. Now what happens if he goes before your 3rd round pick? Now you're way behind, and now you're going to have to try to figure out, or the 4th round, so the further back he goes, if your game plan is Mondesi dependent, there's so much more risk by waiting on him, because then you don't know that you're going to get him. If he goes, then you're screwed. What's your plan? Do you have a backup plan? And I mean, that's a tough guy to have a backup plan for. I think if I was dead set on wanting Mondesi, I think it would be in an auction, and I would throw him out first, because that way either I get him and I build a team around that, or I don't get him, he goes for too much, and then I can, worry about how I can build it after knowing I don't get him. But in a snake draft, it's a problem.
Yeah, I think it's a huge problem, and I mean, some people are going to just be out, and I completely understand that, because to be honest, I don't think you can go into a draft, or you should not go into a draft planning on taking him, because like you mentioned, what if you don't end up with him, and then you're just screwed on stolen bases? And that's one of the categories that you do not want to be short on in the draft. It's steals and saves.
There's
no way to get them back.
And they're super expensive in Fab when they do come up. Mm-hmm. So I'm coming out, I want to be short on power. That's fine, or wins, whatever. I do not want to be short on speed. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. And I think the main issue is, I mean, here's what I'm going to end up doing. When I do my projections, and I've got my projections in front of me, I'm going to project Mondesi for 20 stolen bases. And anything I get on top of that is gravy. But the idea, or what projections are supposed to be, is a median outcome, right? And so and I feel like the projection systems are not providing that right now. I don't know if it's because he stole so many bases in such a small period of time in 2020, and because he's stolen big amounts of stolen bases in the past, but it's really not giving a median outcome. It's giving way too much weight to that small sample in 2020, and I'm going to project him for 20 stolen bases, And then anything I get on top of that's gravy. But by projecting him for 20 stolen bases, it's going to give me a lot of wiggle room, right? And it's also going to force me to make sure I get other stolen base assets and batting average assets, because I don't know where I'm like. Let's see, I got Steamer's projected. Steamer's gone for 248. The one thing I haven't heard anybody talk about is the fact that he hit 230 last year. Like the reason why Mondesi was a huge risk was, one, injury, but two, like, the skills are not supported for him to hit 240 or 250.
Right. I will say he had his lowest BABIP of his career. Like, he's usually a 335 to 355 BABIP guy, and he was sub 300. He was at 299 last year. I think he's probably closer to a 250 hitter, but his contact skills are not great. He's a 30% K rate guy. So can it be lower? Can it be 230s, 240s? Sure, it could definitely be that low. And then we also mentioned earlier, there's also the playing time factor. They know that he has injury issues. They want to keep him healthy. This is not a competitive team. So unless they're competitive and they need him for a run, I just don't see them pushing him. I don't see them playing him every day. He sat 7 times in September. So, basically, if moving forward, that's how they do things, that's almost twice a week. So, I mean, I know that you're going to say if he's hitting well, they're not going to sit him. I don't know if that's not true, because they're not a competitive team. Why are they going to push their guy who they know?
I actually don't disagree with you.
Okay.
I just don't know that it matters. If he's hitting well, I don't know that it matters. Like, it
matters a little bit. Twice a week is not nothing.
But he has the talent to make up for that, though. If sitting him 7 times a month keeps him on the field, he's stealing 50 bases.
It won't, but yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, if it keeps him on the field, I think the bigger question is, do we believe he can stay healthy for 150 games?
Right.
Or, or 135 games.
Right. So ultimately, my approach to this is, I think even the 4th round is too high, honestly. And there's always going to be someone higher on him than me, but I think the only way you can approach Mondesi is build your team as if you're not going to draft him for the first 3 or 4 rounds, and if he happens to fall to like that 5th, 6th round area, then you look at him as like a lottery ticket. You can take him and you say, look, if he hits, my team's going to be to the moon. And then maybe after him, you focus slightly less on getting additional steals down later in the draft that you would maybe be taking a little bit more if you didn't have him. So you're not focusing quite as much on it, but you still got those in the first couple rounds. You got at least 2 or 3 guys who can give you solid steals in addition to him. And that's really the only way that in a snake draft that I'm going to be taking Mondesi.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. I might be a little bit higher. I might be able to, like, back into the 4th round or somewhere in the 5th round, pop on him, but it'll only be if I have another stolen base asset, because I will. I'm going to make sure I have another stolen base asset along with him. I'm not, if for some reason I were to not draft a stolen base guy, I can't even imagine the scenario. I guess like a team like Toby put together in Arizona, where he went pitcher, catcher, catcher. I guess Mondesi fits kind of in with that, because you're taking the gamble, but you could end up with like 10 stolen bases on the year with that.
See, I disagree. I think that would be a bad time to take him, because you have nothing else and steals earlier. Like that's the whole point here. It's if you're depending on him for all those steals, I think you need to put yourself in a position where you're not dependent on him. But I think that's his whole. I think that's what makes him so valuable, though, is the fact that he can potentially be so impactful on that category. But I think you can't use him that way. I think he has to just be kind of that lottery bonus kind of guy. And if it works out, like if he stays healthy randomly, then maybe you get an overall out of it. But I don't think he can be one of your, main support players there. And I don't want to draft, like you were calling them earlier, rabbits, one category, steals guys to back him up, because if and when he goes down, I don't want to play those guys. Like, I never want to play those guys. I do out of desperation when I have to, but that never wants to be my plan A, B, or C. So for me, I'm sure I probably just won't end up with him, but I think he's still going to end up being taken too high. I think anything in the first 3 rounds is definitely too high, and I think the 4th round is probably still too high.
Yeah, I'm sure I will end up with him at some point. But I don't think I'm going to have very many. Because I think
I would hope not.
I just think there's always going to be someone in my draft that likes him more than me.
There should be.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's, and it's a bummer because I do like Mondesi, and I was in on him in 2019, before he got to the majors and had the huge impact, but I've kind of been out since then, just because it just doesn't make a ton of sense. I probably will take a share here or there. But it's got to be in the right situation.
It's just so hard to build a cohesive roster construction with him in there. It's really difficult. I will say this: leagues, formats that have IL slots like Yahoo, I think he makes a lot of sense as an upside play there, because like Yahoo 10-team leagues, super shallow roster, you can take him, and then if/when he goes on the IL, you're going to be able to replace him with a pretty solid bat. So I think that's ideally the best time to take him in drafts. So
if
I
you're
think
in a shallow league with IL spots, it makes a lot more sense, which I'm sure a lot of people are. The replacement level allows you. The only problem though is like if you're in a league with very few IL spots, because you're gonna have other injuries, and you don't want to have to make a decision on cutting him versus, Jose Altuve went down. Well, Altuve is probably a bad example considering he's another middle infielder. But, Pete Alonso. Like, Pete Alonso goes down, and now you've got to make a decision on whether you're keeping Mondesi or Alonso because, Mondesi keeps getting hurt. So.
I mean, you're probably just going to keep both of them, but one of them is going to be taking up a bench slot now. So, but
that's a killer in those kind of leagues, especially if you're daily moves.
Right. Yeah. And so I think, I forget if Yahoo is unlimited IL slots or if it's, I forget.
It's usually anywhere from 3 to 5.
I think it's on the, no, it's not unlimited. What is it, like 5 maybe? Yeah, I think it's 5, but it's enough that I think he makes a lot of sense in that type of league. But, NFBC, I don't see myself taking him in any of those. I just don't think it's the right format for him.
Got a question. What the fuck you Kings doing up so goddamn late? We're talking baseball, baby. Talking fantasy baseball with my buddy Dave. Let's talk about this Marlins rotation.
Speaking of being up late, we've got our UK friends like Peter Pratt who could be listening right now, and he's about to get real excited.
Because the Marlins are building something pretty cool, and you wanted to talk about it, so I'll let you lead this one off. What did you want to talk about in terms of the Marlins?
So actually, this was I threw it out to it was like midnight, and I was like, "Hey, anyone have any topics that they in our DM thread on Twitter or our DM? Yeah, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, the Battle of the Pods people." So one of the people in there is Derek Butcher from NFBC. The guy who's in charge of pretty much running everything. And he was like, "Hey, why don't we talk about the Marlins rotation?" I was like, "Fuck it, why not? Let's do it." So like, I know we have one friend who would love to hear more Marlins talk. So, all right, and it's kind of fits because I've been on this, I drafted both Sandy Alcantara and Trevor Rogers at the First Pitch Arizona in the Draft and Hold League. I'm pretty high on their rotation, honestly. Like it's hard not to be. I mean, you've got Alcantara, who's the workhorse ace. You've got Trevor Rogers, who's another ace, but he can add a little length. Like he's not going to go as deep into games as Alcantara. I'm hoping he starts to, but they're not quite as liberal with him as they are with Alcantara yet. But Pablo Lopez, season cut short by injury, but he looked like a legit ace. Like a close to a 3 ERA, 1.12 WHIP, 10K per nine, and 2.3 walks per nine in about 100 innings. The guy keeps improving. That change is elite. And all three of those guys have really good changeups. And I kind of wrote in my notes, like, what if those three teach their changeups to some of the other younger guys in their rotation who don't have a great changeup yet? They've got Eliezer Hernandez there, who as a number 4 guy is pretty damn good. He doesn't have the upside of the other guys, but he only throws 91, but he's just a really solid guy. I think his projections have him like 4.28 ERA, something like that. They obviously picked up Jesus Luzardo, who, looks lost, but guy throws 96 with a good curve. He needs to improve his fastball and change, but certainly it can come together at any point for him. He's got that kind of talent. Sixto Sanchez, another guy who I don't know. I don't think I'll have any of him for next year. He's coming off of season-ending shoulder surgery in July. He'll probably take a good chunk of the season to really get back into it, I would imagine. And they'll probably kind of baby him. But, I mean, so much talent there. Steamer projection is super optimistic, projecting a 3.73 ERA and 1.26 WHIP with 8.6K per nine. We've talked about how these early projections are a little more robust than we're comfortable with. I think that's another pretty good example of that. And then they've got, so that's already 6 starters right there that they've got, young, good starters. And then they've got a 7th in Edward Cabrera. I mean, he went through single A, double A, triple A, and then eventually came up to the majors for, I think, 6 or 7 starts. The MLB sample wasn't great, but, I mean, he throws 97 with a good curve, and this was a top prospect who, I mean, he's going to be good sooner than later. And I think he just needs some more polish. And then just to show how ridiculous their depth is, they have an 8th guy, and it's top prospect, number 3 overall pick in 2020, and the top 20 overall prospect in Max Meyer, who made it all the way to AAA last year. So he's not too far behind either.
Don't forget, they also have Cody Poteet. They have Braxton Garrett and Nick Neidhart. In the minor leagues, those guys are all afterthoughts when these guys are all in the rotation. But that's how deep this is. Their AAA rotation is better than some major league rotations.
Definitely better than the Orioles.
Yeah, exactly. So, I wonder if another trade, because we also can't forget they traded Zach Gallen away.
You're right.
Chad Chisholm. This could have been even better. I wonder if another trade is coming. I wonder if there's going to be, a team like the Yankees that's always looking for pitching, or a team like Boston, if there is another one of these, offensive player for pitcher kind of trade. At the same time, you always need pitching. I mean, you can never have too much. Look at what happened to the Dodgers this year, right? I mean, the Dodgers, we were saying they need to trade Gonsolin, they need to trade Dustin May. They've got too many pitchers. Oh, David Price isn't even in the rotation. By the end of the year, they were it was Walker Buehler and Julio Urias and a prayer. Which is still a pretty damn good rotation. But
right. Cleveland, same thing. Cleveland went through this too. Everyone's like, oh, they're so deep, but then Bieber goes down, Plesac goes down, Savali goes down, and it's like we're throwing randoms out there, and it's like, Jesus, yeah. You can never have too much starting pitching, but again, you're right. Maybe it would make some sense to deal one if they could. I mean, if you can get a guy like Jazz Chisholm, and that was a great move for them, because at the time I was thinking, holy shit, they just traded Zach Gallen for Jazz Chisholm. Oh my good Lord, this is not a good trade for them. But hey, it looks like it's going to work out pretty damn well, because Jazz looks great.
Well, it looks like he's going to be the face of that franchise. Really marketable kid. It's just a lot of fun to watch.
Love him.
I'm in on the top 3. absolutely in on the top 3.
Ditto.
I like Sandy Alcantara. I love Lopez. I love Rogers. I wish I had bought into Rogers quicker. I was very skeptical early on, but I was definitely wrong on Trevor Rogers. As far as Hernandez and Luzardo go, I probably am not going to have many shares. I might have a share here or there of Hernandez, but man, Luzardo has a hype machine better than professional boxers. Like they have like people in the fantasy industry just won't let this guy go. And when healthy, he can be a really, really good pitcher, but he struggles inside of the zone. And I don't think he was healthy all this year. I think he was hurting. He's a guy who's dealt with injuries the last 2 seasons. I'm staying away from him. He needs to prove it to me before I'm willing to buy in. And if that means I miss out on some huge breakout, that's okay. There's other guys.
So if you think he wasn't healthy this season or the previous season, do you think that this is like a perpetual problem for him? Is that why you're still out on him? Because otherwise, I'm looking for guys who went through this year injured in order to then possibly take advantage of them being healthy next year. But you don't think that he's healthy still?
I think this needs corrective. This is like a corrective issue. Remember, he had that shoulder issue. He's had 2 shoulder issues in 2 years. If he comes out and he's pumping 97 again, then maybe I'll start to buy back in a little bit. But he struggled with velocity. It's a real sign. And on top of always struggling with the command like he does, he could definitely be another Robbie Ray. Absolutely. Do I believe he's got that talent? Sure. And if he's going in the spots where Robbie Ray was going coming into this season,
I think he'll go later.
I don't. I think if he's looking good in spring, he's going to jump back into the top 200, and I'm just not going to pay that price.
Oh, I don't. Okay, I think we're off on that. I don't think he's going to go in the top 200. I don't think he's going to go. I don't even know if he's going to be in the top 300, honestly. I don't have a good idea of exactly where he's going to go, but I don't think it's going to be that high. And if you're going to go and try to look for our draft board from First Pitch Arizona again, that takes you 20 minutes, I'm going to kill you. I'm not going to find it.
I was actually going to pull up the ADP from last year because I want to say he was going top 125.
I don't
for no apparent reason.
I don't think. Well, last year it made more sense. He was coming off, he had pitched very, very well more recently. Now, with another bad season behind him, I don't think he's going anywhere close to that. We're through 23 rounds of the draft and hold in First Pitch. I'm 99% sure he didn't get picked. So that's, 200 and math. I don't know, 200 and some. Look, it's 4 a.m. here. All right,
it's 345.
Okay, so I don't think he went. Is it really that much? Okay. I don't think he went in the first 3. Oh, it's 15 teams. That's right.
Yeah.
I wasn't even trying to calculate the right number, but so I don't even think he won the top 350 in that draft. I don't think he's gone yet. There's better pitchers still on the board right now.
Yeah. So, yeah. No, if he stays that way, I would be
shocked if he went the top 200. I don't think he's going the top 300. So I think all he really is a dart throw. It's a bet on his talent at the end of the draft. It's definitely going to come in those bench rounds in NFBC drafts. It's not going to be in the first 23 rounds. It'll be in round 24, 25, something like that.
He had an ADP of 105 in 2021. After posting a 4.12 ERA.
Yeah, 4.12. What was it this year? 6?
Yeah, but
6.6.
If he's looking good in spring, he'll have a Freddie Peralta type jump. I promise.
I don't think so.
I do.
All right, we'll see. I don't see that. I think people know that he's a flyer. There's a lot of flaws there. And hey, like you said, if he does go that high, then that's fine. I'll take someone else. But
absolutely,
he's nothing more than a late round flyer. We don't even know if he'll be in the rotation, honestly, because if Sixto is good to go, it's possible he leapfrogs Luzardo. I think that the Marlins are open. No, probably not.
I think they're going to be super careful with Sixto. Said too
I think
many
so, too.
injuries. I'd be really, really surprised if Sixto starts the year in the majors, even if he's healthy. I think the biggest question becomes like, where does Edward Cabrera fit in? You know, if Cabrera's looking good, do they want him to start back in the minors after his struggles?
Yeah.
Or, but I mean, there's also, is Pablo Lopez going to be healthy? Is Eliezer Hernandez going to be healthy? Like there are some question marks with some of these guys as well. So
Sure.
I think a lot of them are going to get opportunities. I think, whether because of injury or just poor performance, or maybe they move to a 6-man rotation because of their depth. It would make a lot of sense. I think a lot of these guys are going to get opportunities.
Sure. I agree. It's just more about who's going to start in the rotation, and I would say the top 4 are pretty safe. I think Pablo and Eliezer are going to be fine coming into the regular season, and then I think Luzardo will have he'll be the number 1 choice in the 5th spot. But I think that Sixto and maybe Cabrera have a shot at overtaking him. But I don't know. I think Cabrera needs to go back and get a little bit more seasoning in the minors first. But regardless, this is phenomenal depth. And like I said, if they're working if they can learn, change ups from Alcantara, Rogers, and Lopez in their rotations, which I don't see why they wouldn't want to learn from them. I mean, they have that at their disposal. They can add another dimension to their game. I think you're looking at they could be I'm not saying they will be. I'm saying they could be top 5 in 2022. I would say they will be a top 10 rotation in 2022. And I think that they could be a top 1 or 2 rotation as early as 2023.
Yeah, I mean, I think they definitely could be top 5. Top 1 or 2, I mean, the Dodgers and the Brewers are still going to have the bulk of those rotations together. I just don't know that they're jumping into that fray, but they definitely could be a top 5 rotation as soon as next year. Depending on, free agency and where guys end up signing and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, and they're all cost controlled, which is huge. If you're a Marlins fan, Peter, I know you're out there. I don't know if there are any other Marlins fans in this country, but or if they're just in England. But this is a really exciting time to be a Marlins fan. They have built this team somewhat unconventionally, but very, very well.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
I think they're going to be an exciting team, fun team to watch. Kind of coming up, especially if they can make some trades to kind of pick up some hitters, or maybe they are aggressive because their payroll is so low with having so many cost-controlled guys. They can go up forward and afford to go pay for a Starling Marte or a couple other big bats.
Yeah, I think I think that they would be a team where they would see how they look early on, and then maybe make an addition or 2 close to the trade deadline when they're going to make a push. I think they want to see it first before they start investing in it. And it's hard for me to see them adding much in the offseason. We kind of talked about, I don't see them adding Correa, but we'll see what they do. This you don't want to waste it. Like what I saw with my Cleveland guys, when you've got that top tier rotation, you don't want to take it for granted and waste it and think we've got plenty of years left. Shit happens. Things always go wrong. Things unforeseen. Take advantage of that window when you have it. So I do hope that they go for it when they are in position to. I don't know if it's going to be this year. I do think that 2023 could be a year that they start looking at that, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a great outfield class, but it's a decent one. You got Chris Bryant, Chris Taylor, Mark Canha, Eddie Rosario, Michael Conforto. Conforto would be a really nice fit for them, I think. Somebody who's still somewhat young, still in his 20s, and still has some upside. So they're not going to pay a ton for him, but there's some good upside there in that bat.
All right, I gotta ask, because you live nearer to Oakland than I do. Did you say Canha? Is that actually how you say it?
Yeah, Mark Canha.
Oh, I thought it was just Canna.
Oh no, in Canha. At least that's how I've always pronounced it. I could be wrong.
Okay. Yeah,
I don't watch a ton of the A's, only because I can watch them while I'm inside of my house, but I cannot watch them in my office because for my office I don't have like a cable box. I stream it from my MLB app, and I'm blacked out. So the A's, even though they are probably the closest team to me geographically, is the team I watch the least of.
Well, I don't want to encourage anyone to do anything illegal, but there are free MLB streams if you do want to watch.
This is true.
Not that I would know anything about that allegedly.
No. I mean, it's a tax write-off for me, so I just paid for the actual stream.
It's a good call. It's a good call.
So, what do you got going on?
Same old, man. But possibly some other stuff that I might be talking to you about coming up in the future. So obviously with Jake, we did not end up recording on Thursday, but he did promise me this Thursday. But then again, he promised.
Promises are empty now.
I know. I will never give it and I love Jake. Sometimes his friendship is challenging, but I will always.
This is the title. That's the title of the episode now.
Oh God. Well, that'll make him watch. That'll make him listen to it. But I love the guy, and I'm always the optimist when it comes to Jake. Like I legitimately think we will be recording. He had a bunch of stuff going on. Are you writing it down right now? You're fucking writing it down right now.
Yes, of course I am.
God damn it. All right. So I do believe that we will be recording on Thursday, and I encouraged him to do a deep dive. Stop fucking laughing. I encouraged him to do a deep dive into his teams, to do a postmortem. He had a bit of a rough year, but I think it's important, especially from good high-stakes players, to hear what their process is, what they learn, and all that stuff when you do have a bad year, because we all want to think it can't happen to us, but it can. And, it's so important for him to learn from this and move forward, and for anybody who had a rough year, and I think he's going to bring a lot of value, and I'm really interested to hear from him, because you kind of heard from me. So I'll go over it again for those of people who don't listen to me on this, but listen to High Stakes Heat. I'll go over my own postmortem again, but I'm more interested personally to hear from him about what he thinks happened with his team this year.
It's absolutely important, especially when the most important postmortems I do are the teams that I didn't do well on. Right. And they're the most difficult to do because they're a reminder of how much money or time you wasted on a team that ended up finishing 8th or both my main event leagues. I think I finished 6th and 8th or something like that in my main event leagues this year. And both of them, I'm digging into what happened and stuff. Because I don't want to finish 6th or 8th again. That's brutal.
Of course not.
I'd rather finish 15th, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be. I think it'll be really interesting, and I think we'll have a good back and forth. So I'm looking forward to that. And then you and I were also talking about possibly start having some guests on, kind of during this next couple months period where not a lot is going on in the world of baseball outside of, well, obviously now the World Series, but that's going to be over by the time we record next week, I think. So it'll be good to get some perspective from some other players and stuff. So I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely. We'll definitely do that. You can read my work. I've been releasing ranks. I think I've got catcher, first and second already up on Fangraphs. I'll be releasing, I think, third base or shortstop tomorrow. I'll have the rest of my ranks, my initial ranks, out before the end of the week, more than likely. So,
guys, get on there and give him some comments. Justin loves comments on his rankings. He's very active with responding to people on there.
Yes, super.
And he loves being trolled too. So don't let his wife and now me be the only people to go on there and troll him. Please join us.
Yeah. Feel free. Yeah. I love ranks and comments, especially ones like, oh, why do you have Nick Madrigal so low or so high when you ranked him 30th at second base? Like, just
Why? What's wrong with you? Why did you do that?
I don't know. I just I just think it's a fun name, Madrigal. Like, I don't know.
If you're a Breaking Bad fan, maybe Madrigal Electric, I think it was. Yeah.
Oh, was it? I don't remember that.
You don't even know I'm talking about, the German company that Lydia was running the drugs through internationally. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize it. I didn't remember the name. I've seen Breaking Bad probably 3 or 4 times. I'm actually currently rewatching The Wire right now.
Oh, how's that going?
Oh, it's fantastic. I'm in the middle of season 3. It's great. I love it. And then after I'm done with that, I think I'm gonna go rewatch Band of Brothers. I'm on an HBO kick right now. So
I have never seen Band of Brothers. My dad loved it.
Oh, absolutely. Do you have HBO?
Let's just say I have the ability to watch any show I want to watch.
Yes, go watch Band of Brothers. It's absolutely fantastic. One of my favorite all time series, and it's
Wow.
super quick. Right? It's like 10 1-hour episodes. That's it.
Oh, it's just like a one mini.
It was a mini series. So,
Okay.
The Flags of Our Father, kind of the other one they did on, or maybe it was Battle for Iwo Jima. I can't remember which one. That they did wasn't as good. Band of Brothers, really well done, and what and I'm a huge history buff, and I love military history, having served in the military myself. So,
That's right.
It's one of the best military series ever done. They did a very good job.
Wow.
Maybe I'll watch Rome too. Rome's a good HBO one. Other than that, just doing podcasts.
That too. Yeah.
If you've never watched Rome, fantastic.
Unfortunately, I was an ancient Roman and Greek history. Like, that was my focus. So I think that would particularly apply for me. Yeah.
It's really good. It unfortunately came out about 5 years too early, because it was canceled. Not because it wasn't doing well. It was doing well, but because it was so expensive to make. This was before, companies were willing to put that much money into television. It cost like $5 million an episode or something like that, and HBO canceled it. If it had come out today, it'd probably still be in like its 10th season or something like that.
I mean, yeah, compared to Game of Thrones, that has to be like cheap.
Exactly. It's nothing. Yeah.
I'm really excited about Dexter coming back on Sunday, because
I just rewatched Dexter recently.
It was the worst fucking ending of any show in the history of TV. So I don't even they can literally.
It's definitely not the worst ending. It wasn't.
No, it is definitive. No, the worst ending. No, it is. You are wrong on this. I say agree to disagree. There is no. Seinfeld. I don't even know what the ending of Seinfeld even was.
Exactly. That's how.
But that's like a comedy, whatever. But Dexter, don't listen to Justin. It was the worst ending, definitively, of all time. And I don't care if they come back with dog shit. It's still going to be a better send-off than it had before. So thank God that it's coming back. But I'm legitimately hoping it's really, really good again. Because when Dexter was good, it was really fucking good.
Yeah. Dexter, one of my favorite all-time shows. Another really good one. If you like Dexter, Mindhunters on Netflix is really good as well.
I've seen that.
Another series that ended too early, I think, unfortunately. And I never really understood the reason why. I'm trying to think of a better show or another show that ended worse than
Firefly. Firefly was the best show that ended after one season, in my opinion.
Yeah. Firefly was good. Journeyman was another good one. I liked Flash Forward. That was another good one. I could do this all night.
Veronica Mars ended way too soon. A lot of people don't even know what that is because they're like, "Oh, it sounds like a weird show." It's really good.
What's her name? I'm gonna call her Eleanor Shellstruck from
from The Good Place. Yeah.
Yeah, character from Good Place. But not her actual name.
It's your wife's favorite GIF of all time. Kristen Bell, right?
Thank you, Kristen Bell. Yeah, not Dane Cook. What's her husband's name?
Dax Shepard or
Dax
something?
Shepard. That's right. Yeah. So
I don't really know who he is. I've just seen him with her.
Oh, really? He's an actor. You ever see the show Punk'd?
I mean,
with Ashton Kutcher back in the day.
Yeah, I've seen it, but I don't remember.
He was the main kind of like reoccurring like guy that would punk people. Like he was the on-camera punker. In the first season, that's where he got famous.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, and then he's been in a bunch of movies, and then he was, I think, in the show Parenthood. This has been like the best ending of a
Yeah. Well, to be fair, we are only at 1 hour 20 minutes right now, so even if we kept doing this for another hour, it would still be shorter than our last episode.
Absolutely. Well, with that, you can reach Dave on Twitter at RunDMCD. Don't forget that D.
Add the D.
You can reach me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. You can email me or the show, friendsoffantasybenefits@gmail.com. Definitely check out Dave's other podcast, High Stakes Heat, if they ever actually record. Or you can check out my other podcast, The Sleeper and the Bus, or the TGFBI podcast, which both should be recording again here pretty soon. So with that, for Dave and myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.
Fun times in Cleveland again. Still Cleveland. Come on down to Cleveland town, everyone. Under construction since 1868. See our river that catches on fire. It's so polluted that all our fish have AIDS. We see the sun almost 3 times a year. This guy has at least 2 DUIs. The flats look like a Scooby-Doo ghost town. Don't slow down in East Cleveland or you'll die. Our economy's based on LeBron James. Buy a house for the price of a VCR. Our main export is crippling depression. We're so retarded that we think this is art. It could be worse though, at least we're not Detroit. We're not Detroit.